Warning! This video contains flashing imagery, dark themes, and seriously real graphics. Viewer discretion is advised. And remember, Lisa, can you see her?
Of course, John. She's magnificent.
Yes. We must go with her.
Let's go.
Leader the order of the second east.
So we have to talk about the revelation of John and Lisa in Faith chapter 3 being two of the 6 children during the second Snake Meadow Hill Church incident, and them definitely not being related or twins or siblings in any way. They are in fact friends. As was pointed out to me in one of the comments, obviously Lisa's surname is Pearson, and you see that name in the apartments, in the mailboxes. Anyway, so for context, the Snake Meadow Hill Church was used as an orphanage and a great way for the cult to acquire new children for rituals. But before we get into John and Lisa in particular, we need to break down a timeline of events to give ourselves some perspective. And now for this timeline to make sense, as with everything to do with the Faith series, we have to make certain assumptions. So bear with me. We know for sure that there are 2 incidents at Snake Meadow Hill Church regarding children. The original one before Sister Bell's arrival, in which 6 children died, which was the prologue of chapter 2. And don't get confused with the prologue section of the game regarding Father Garcia. It is the prologue of Faith chapter 2, which related to the Scarecrow and the Corn Maze. Then there is the later Snake Meadow Hill Church incident where 4 children went missing, which Miriam Bell was a part of. Through the notes of Faith, we only get reference to 2 particular decades in which events of Snake Meadow Hill Church, and specifically Miriam Bell, in which they actually happened. The chapter 3 note, which tells us Miriam Bell had the second death ritual performed on her, was in the 1930s. And note 12 of chapter 2, which was the first day of the paranormal investigation, references the 1950s, in which they were told about the Spindly Lady game, which is to do with the spirit of a woman who used to take care of the orphans back in the 50s. Now we have note number 5, which tells us specifically about 1 missing woman, 4 missing kids, and 1 deceased old nun. Now why is this important? Well, having gone over these events so many times in my head, for it to make the most sense, despite all of this game's contradictions, Miriam Bell's second death ritual would have to have taken place at Snake Meadow Hill Church at least 20 years prior to her appointment as a volunteer to look after the second lot of 6 children. This is backed up by another note, the strange behaviour note number 4 from Faith chapter 2, from a staff member that worked there that remarked that Sister Bell just instantly knew her way around Snake Meadow Hill Church, as though she had been there multiple times before and knows the site well. Now, whether Miriam Bell was a willing participant and member of the cult or not at the time of her second death ritual, I personally don't think she was, as I kind of like the idea that part of the cult's plan was to influence the church, and by finding suitable vessels for the second death ritual in people of the church such as Miriam Bell, a nun. But again, this cannot be confirmed. Anyways, in 1934 Miriam was readied and the second death ritual was successfully completed, and trigger warning regarding the actual process of the second death, so you have been warned. After passing living newborns through the portal to hell, which was carved in her face, Gary, who is not a normal human being like the rest of us, came back through. This is where the Miriam Bell is Gary's mother thing comes from, because he came to this world from Miriam Bell. Now, I believe that either the original Snake Meadow Hill Church incident either happened alongside this in the 1930s, or perhaps slightly later in the 1940s. This coming from note number 3, in which Miriam Bell is hired to help look after the children of the attached orphanage, which I believe takes place in the 1950s, as previously mentioned. We have a new volunteer to look after the children and take care of things around the sanctuary, Sister Bell. She came highly recommended by the main office in Hartford. Bringing her in marks the completion of staffing the church after all these years. We've received clearance to move in a new group of children, 3 next week and another 3 sometime next month. However, I will asterisk this entire timeline that I just came up with John's apparent birth date, which completely messes up everything. I kind of wish I never saw it. According to the Faith Wiki, John was born in 1953, as it was apparently confirmed by the dev that John Ward is the same age as the actor who played Damien Karras from the classic horror film The Exorcist, this being the character John Ward was originally inspired by. Now, if John was indeed born in 1953, then the events of Miriam Bell at Snake Meadow Hill would have to have been in the late 60s, early 70s. Or, here's another crazy theory for you guys to decide in the comments. As we know, in the basement of Snake Meadow Hill Church, time doesn't change. It stays at 2 AM. And because of this, John and Lisa are actually 10 to 15 years older than they appear, as they were down in the basement for that long during the preparation ritual, which I will come on to later. Now, with that annoying contradiction out of the way, let's continue. Now, these new children that arrived at Snake Meadow Hill Church, we now know 2 of them are John and Lisa. The colours of characters, like in Five Nights at Freddy's, it's very important to the story, which makes John's nightmare of the incident, basically the whole of Faith Chapter 2, much more personal to him than we all originally thought. So what took place when John and Lisa were there were Faith Chapter 2's prologue notes 3 to 8 in what is described through a staff worker's notes of Miriam Bell's strange behaviour. Now, keep in mind that she is, at this point in time, a member of the cult and had the second death performed on her. Though I assume, like Amy in the true ending of Chapter 3, she is able to hide the portal to hell that's on her face. Otherwise, I don't think they would have been too comfortable with her working there. Now we come to the children, and some amazing news is that some of the notes have been retconned. Thank you, Erdorf, thank you, my brain really needed this. When previously the prologue notes of 5 to 7 referenced the 2 remaining children as twins, twins is now removed and or replaced with the word children. This further confirming that Lisa and John are the 2 remaining children of Snake Meadow Hill Church during Miriam Bell's time working at the church. John and Lisa have had to suppress the trauma that they experienced during the 1950s when, as an orphan, were brought to Snake Meadow Hill Church and taken into the basement by Miriam Bell, as seen by Father Clark and the detective that was investigating Snake Meadow Hill Church at the time. This suppression of memories, I believe, can be confirmed by the first note that John picks up from the developer Erdorf himself, which there is also a similar note at the start of Chapter 3, which gives us a clue into John's mind at the time. Have you forgotten already? The notes people leave behind seem to exist on the edges of memory. Pressing the escape key or the start button is a good way to remember what you don't realise you have forgotten. To remember what you don't realise you have forgotten. Whether through the trauma or the rituals that were potentially performed on them in the basement of Snake Meadow Hill Church, John, and probably Lisa too, forgot they were ever at Snake Meadow Hill Church. My theory is that because we have seen a number of endings in which John was converted into becoming a member of the cult, like the initiation ending of chapter 3 and the death scene in the first battle with Gary, where John has the second death successfully administered on him, it makes the most sense that what happened to both of them in the basement is what was referred to as the preparation of the vessel. That's just something I came up with, by the way. If we take note 33 of chapter 3 as a clue to this, it seems that another who already is a successful recipient of the second death consumes the new vessel, probably through the portal to hell, and the other side either accepts or rejects them. So 4 of the children were rejected as they were not fitting to receive the second death and were thrown back through and then killed. I say that because Tiffany was also a rejected vessel who was still alive, but afterwards a demon inhabited them. So if we go by this logic, it could explain how the spindly lady appeared as the final staff member was a rejected vessel as well. John and Lisa were also consumed through the portal to hell, but were deemed successful vessels for the second death, and so were returned unharmed, as husks. Now you're probably asking, but if that's the case, then why weren't they taken by the cult from the 1950s sort of onwards? Now this is sort of a tough question to answer, but let's speculate. I think since that time, they were always under intense watch from the cult. Lisa was likely offered accommodation at the apartments on the cheap so the cult could have a strong vessel sitting in their midst. She was obviously oblivious to this, but had similar nightmares to John that helped her remember at least some of what happened based on her notes to John at the start of chapter 3. And as for John, his interest in the church and faith in God would also play into the cult's hands, as they would appear to already have significant influence on the church in Connecticut at the very least. John and Lisa, whether born pre-1950s or not, were unfortunate results of the cult's influence in many areas of rural Connecticut. For the cult, it is easy for them to infiltrate various industries to meet their needs. If they need newborns to be able to make contact with hell, they run an abortion clinic. If they need children as future vessels for portals to hell, they have an orphanage as part of a church and can bring in as many parentless children as they need. Access to the church, they use the current members of the church as vessels to create influence, such as Miriam Bell. I don't think we quite grasp just how far-reaching the cult's influence in this particular area of the United States there is, but I think this now gives us a pretty good idea. I also feel that John going with Father Allred to assist in the exorcism of Amy Martin was fated to happen. Something inside John, despite his forgotten memories of Snake Meadow Hill Church, was drawing him to demonic activity. Oblivious to why he had this specific interest, through Father Allred he found someone else who understood, and Father Allred found someone he could rely on for his top secret assignment that to me feels like it was kept from others at the church, including perhaps the cultists, which is why they potentially didn't know that John and Father Allred were going there. Lisa likely lived a lot of her life after Snake Meadow Hill Church in those apartments, unknowingly under the careful gaze of the cult, making friends with cult members such as Tiffany, oblivious to the activities going on, and then the nightmares began. It's also very hard to discern whether John and Lisa, potentially their relationship prior to what happened in that basement, allowed them to keep their memories of each other so that they always knew each other, if you like, or again, when the nightmares began, did they then realise, oh, I know Lisa Pearson, or I know John Ward, and then then Lisa got into contact with John, and John knew who she was. I have a feeling that their relationship survived the memories that were taken from them, essentially. Whether triggered by more powerful and frequent demonic activity, something triggered those memories for her and for John when originally condemned by the cult, as if they never happened. What was that phrase? Damnatio Memoriae. Did I say that right? But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you did enjoy this shorter, hopefully shorter, faith discussion video. I will leave you all, however, with one final question to theorise in the comments, as I have no idea about this and it's really bugging me. Note number 2 in Faith Chapter 2, the prologue, 6 Little Graves, it is named, states, I don't want to see anyone from the sanctuary ever again. Not even that girl who stayed inside the house last night. So this is the prologue note referencing the deaths of the original 6 children, but the question is, who is the girl who stayed in the house, or presumably the orphanage in the church, last night? Was it a younger Miriam Bell? Was it another cult member? Was it a time-travelling Amy Martin? Like, literally, why would they make that reference in that note? Unless it was important. Are they talking about Miriam? But I'm not sure. Anyways, let me know, as it's really bugging me, and it probably messes up the timeline that I made anyway. But hey, hit me up in the comments. I love the theories and your guys' ideas in the comments. It's so good to bounce ideas off of each other, and it really helps me with my videos, so please keep doing that, guys. I'm loving all of the stuff in the comments for the last video that we did. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and yes, there will be another video, and we're going to be discussing Father Garcia, guys, because we need to delve a bit deeper into Father Garcia. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button. If you are new here, do feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and check out some of the other videos I've got going on, because you never know, you just might like them. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.